Every parent has done it. We're out with our kids having a good time and keeping an eye on them. We turn our heads for a second to order food or answer a question, and when we turn around, our kids are still there enjoying themselves. But deep down, we all have the same fear, that we'll look back and our child will be gone. On January 23rd, 1999, Theresa English lived every parent's worst nightmare. That evening, she was with a dozen family members at a bowling alley, and her 2-year-old daughter, Teekah Lewis, was happily playing on a car racing game. Theresa was distracted for just an instant, and her entire world fell apart. It wouldn't be until later that the family would find out that Teekah wasn't the first child to be harmed at the New Frontier Lanes bowling alley in Tacoma, Washington. There was at least one predator out there, and Teekah's family have been trying to find both him and Teekah for over 20 years. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell you the stories of those who never came home. Today, I want to tell you the story of Teekah Lewis. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Well, we certainly didn't intend on having 2 cases in a row involving bowling alleys.
I kind of wanted to bring that up. Like, why are we now the serial
bowling alley disappearance podcast?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just happens to be that. And it's especially scary because we've been going to our bowling alley a lot.
A lot.
And sticking our kids in the arcade, which is exactly what was happening here. Yeah, so it's I don't know, it's amazing like how quickly things can happen. And it's cases like this, the worst case scenario, right? You turn your head and your child's gone, that make everybody so paranoid about stranger danger, but it's, these cases are so exceedingly rare.
Right, but it's like you said, it strikes to the very heart of the fear of losing a child.
Yeah.
Like, it is the absolute worst case scenario of how your child goes missing.
Yeah, it is. And
so, I mean, they're rare, but it's the stuff that gets not glorified, but like put out in media, and it's parents' worst nightmare. These are the cases that stick with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was so little. Oh, and what's even more wild is, unlike our bowling alley, this one had security.
Really?
Yeah. So, of course, we'll be getting into all of that.
Yeah, because immediately I'm like, okay, security guards, we need to talk to them.
Yeah.
Because, like, if they have security and there's multiple abductions at this bowling alley.
I didn't say multiple abductions, multiple incidents.
All right.
But yeah, we'll get into it.
Okay.
But for now, let's get into the story of Teekah Lewis. Teekah Latrice Lewis was born on July 4th, 1996, to Theresa English and Robert Lewis. Teekah was Theresa's 4th child, and Theresa would go on to give birth to another baby when Teekah was about a year old, bringing the total to 5. So Teekah is mixed race. Her father's Black, and her mother is white and Native American. Her family is part of the Chippewa tribe in Washington State, making Teekah another on the long list of missing or murdered Indigenous people. Her family describes Teekah as being a mature toddler. Like, she could be very self-sufficient, but she was also a mama's girl. She rarely left Theresa's side and often slept with her in her bed at night, which,
sounds familiar.
Yeah, very familiar. And, she was only 2, but I get what they're saying about her being mature because she had 3 older siblings.
Right.
And, like, that does make you kind of act...
Yeah, very much.
More grown than you are, but she was still only a toddler. Teekah's father, Robert, wasn't involved much in her life due to his own life challenges. He had been in and out of trouble with the law for years, and at the time of his daughter's disappearance in 1999, he was incarcerated for first-degree theft. I believe at this point he had served like 1 year of a 4-year sentence, something along those lines.
Well, that rules him out as a suspect.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, he does get rolled out very quickly. Of course, police immediately went to go talk to him, because it's not like he couldn't have done something or orchestrated something from behind bars. But yeah. But despite of the lack of, a father in her life, Teekah had plenty of family around. They all loved spending time together when they were able, which is what brought them to New Frontier Lanes on the evening of January 23rd. It was a cold, rainy night in Washington state. The temperature was about 38 degrees Fahrenheit as Theresa and her boyfriend arrived with her children around 8:30 p.m. They were joined by about half a dozen other family members, and the group rented lanes 7 and 8 in the bowling alley. New Frontier Lanes was a popular hangout in Tacoma, and that night was league night, so it was extra busy. It was so busy, in fact, that the bowling alley often hired on-site security. Now, this particular night, an off-duty Tacoma police officer held that position. New Frontier's layout was typical of bowling alleys at the time. I'm sure it was built in like the 60s or whatever. And they had all the lanes, of course, and then a snack bar area, and then a separate area in the back with arcade games. And the children, not just Theresa's children, like all of the children in the bowling alley would typically bounce back and forth between the lanes that the family occupied and the video game area. And when I say video game area, this is not a separate room. This is not really a separate area. It's just like a collection of, I think probably half a dozen or so video games just off kind of in the corner by the door. So around 10:15 p.m., that's what Teekah was doing. She went over to Cruisin' World, the ubiquitous car racing game that kids love because it has a seat and a steering wheel. So even if you're not actually playing the game, like it's still fun to sit on it and pretend.
One quick question. You said the video games were off in the corner by the door.
Yes.
Are we sure that they are actually by the door?
Yes. So I'll try to find the picture or the diagram and put it on the website. But yeah, there was a diagram of the bowling alley in one of the newspaper articles, and it did show that the video games were close to the exit, or at least one of the exits, because there were multiple.
Yeah, sure. Just ease of access to that location.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Theresa, of course, knew Teekah was over playing on that game, and she was keeping an eye on her along with other family members. It was one of the situations where it's like, okay, Teekah's over here. I'm watching her. When it's my turn to bowl, you keep an eye on her type of situation. But at one point, Theresa turned away to attend to one of her other kids, and when she looked back, her daughter was gone.
And this is right around 10:15.
Yeah. And at this point, Theresa does what any parent would in that situation. She alerted her family, and they began to search inside of the bowling alley. She went into the restroom, and one of her other relatives was in there changing like her baby's diaper. And so she went in and she's like, "Did you see Teekah?" She said, "No." They're looking everywhere. They're asking other patrons if they'd seen her. And Theresa even went outside in the parking lot, because again, it was close to the door. So they're like, maybe she wandered out, but it was just so fast. When their frantic search failed to turn up the little girl, they went to the off-duty police officer who was the security guard there that night. Again, the exact timeline of like how long each portion of this took is very tough to figure out.
I mean, regardless, it's within the same hour, let's say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they were searching for like 10 minutes. And when they couldn't find her after 10, 15 minutes, that's when they went to the security guard.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. And so the security guard apparently sealed off the exits and prevented anyone from leaving. He was also able to make an announcement over the intercom system and check in the employee-only areas. But they still couldn't find Teekah, so they called the police.
Good job on his part.
One of the things, the timing of all this, like how long all of this took, will come up a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, it does sound like, that is basically what you would want him to be doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese used to have a button that they would hit and like seal everything off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think that they pay attention anymore post pandemic.
No.
They're like, it's like a free for all.
It really is.
Anybody can come in and take as many kids as they want.
Yeah.
But like legitimately, I mean, especially in the 90s, like that was a big thing where like the employees would hit a button and like literal gates would come down and close off all the exits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There was like a whole episode of CSI about it.
Oh, okay. Police arrived quickly, but they were operating under the assumption that the toddler had wandered off, which, in their defense, like that is the most likely scenario.
Yeah, especially if the video games were as close to an exit as it seems like they were.
Exactly. Given the cold weather and the late hour, however, they still did act with urgency. They searched a 1.5 mile radius around the bowling alley's location at 4702 Center Street. The Pierce County Sheriff's Department organized about 36 search and rescue volunteers, some with dogs, and sent them out. And this basically, they searched, the immediate area right away. I don't know exactly when if they like broke to go to sleep or whatever, but I do know that, there was a 15-hour search. So I think if they did stop, they resumed very early the next morning, Sunday morning, and searched until dusk the next day, basically. So by Sunday morning, the FBI was involved with more agents continuing to join as the day stretched on. Helicopters were called in, but no trace of the toddler was found. By 5 p.m. on Sunday, the next day, law enforcement officials announced that they believed Teekah Lewis had been abducted. And again, this is the same thing we talked about with Orrin and Orson West. It's like when you have a child this little, if they simply wander off, there's only so far they can physically go.
Right.
So if you don't find them in that very small area, you know that there's a third party involved.
Yeah, and this is something that we've talked about before with how you and I disagree with not with each other, but with the rules around Amber Alerts and when they can and can't be issued. The thought process behind it is you don't want to desensitize people to Amber Alerts, so you limit the amount that you put out and leave them only to cases where an abduction happened.
Right.
But an Amber Alert, especially when you're talking about somebody so little, should be issued, in my opinion, right away, regardless of whether there is any evidence of an abduction or not. Because the more eyes you have looking out for a 2-year-old, the better.
Well, exactly. Now, in their defense, Amber Alerts did not exist yet.
In 1999?
In Washington State. Yeah, I did fact check myself there, and I was right. The Washington State Amber Alert Plan was authorized in 2003.
Damn, that just seems really late to me.
No, I know. But yeah, so that wasn't even an option in this case. And the general, of course, the people who were at the bowling alley and who lived nearby were aware of something very early on because they were knocking on doors and, interviewing people. But the general public in Tacoma didn't really begin to find out anything until Monday.
So like a full day and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 days, depending on when on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't start to hit the news until Monday. So on Monday, 32 Tacoma police officers and 11 FBI agents conducted a door-to-door search around the bowling alley and interviewed local sex offenders. So again, this is where they're starting to expand out in terms of the people that they're interviewing. So they've already interviewed the patrons and the employees at the bowling alley. They've started talking to the family, obviously, but now they're expanding and looking to see who else is around. A 24-hour tip line was also set up. Theresa was given her first polygraph on Monday, and police, of course, interviewed the family, though nobody else at the time was given a polygraph. Tacoma police spokesperson Ed Baker told reporters that they weren't focusing on the family as suspects, but they had to be ruled out.
Yeah, no, that's standard.
However, Tacoma police wouldn't release the results of the polygraph, and Theresa told reporters that the polygrapher similarly wouldn't give her any information. So she didn't actually know if she passed or not. The police weren't saying anything. She ended up taking a second polygraph later, and I assume she passed both of them because she was ruled out as a suspect. The search continued with volunteers continuing to look and handing out flyers, but Investigators failed to develop any strong leads and were, of course, getting frustrated. By that point, over 120 tips had come into the tip line, but none had developed into anything substantial. They put out an appeal to the patrons who were at the bowling alley Saturday night to turn over any photos or videos that they may have taken. Tacoma Police spokesperson Ed Baker said, quote, "A picture can solve this case," end quote. And that would actually turn out to be extremely true, as we'll get into. But, they weren't just waiting for leads to come in. So I don't want to give it that impression either. They haven't completely turned this over to the public saying, all right, what do you have for us?
Yeah, but at this, cases of missing persons, use the public as your ally. This is, it's a 2-year-old girl that's gone missing. Like, put as much information out there as possible. Get as many eyes looking for her as you can. Like, there's no reason to hold anything back in the search for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, they certainly are not. Yeah, so like I said, they were, continuing to search. It was kind of a wooded area around the bowling alley. There were like a lot of, overgrown like weeds and plants and stuff too. And there was also a pond nearby, and they dragged the pond. Like, they were thoroughly searching the area. And on Thursday, police announced a possible lead. Chronological age is your birthday. Biological age is how old your body really is, and it's the strongest indicator of disease risk and mortality. The True Age and True Health Combo Kit measures biological age versus chronological age and your current pace of aging. I've been using True Diagnostic for a while, and it's been so interesting to me to get the data that normal blood work just doesn't cover. My true age is pretty close to my chronological age, but there's always room for improvement. True Age tracks the health of 11 organ systems, including your heart, brain, and lungs. True Health checks over 105 vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and other health markers. But best of all, if you get the combo kit, it gives you 3 aging actions and 3 health actions to work on each quarter. So it gives you goals that you can actually achieve to improve your health. You order online, the kit ships right to your door. It's a quick, simple finger prick at home, and then you just drop it in the prepaid return package. You just follow the recommendations for the 90 days, and then you retest to see your progress. It uses advanced epigenetic testing to analyze over 1 million biomarkers. It's trusted by top longevity clinics and health professionals, not just consumers at home. And right now, my listeners can get 20% off at TrueDiagnostic.com using code ATTWG20 at checkout. That's TrueDiagnostic.com and use code ATTWG20 for 20% off today. Choose True Age, True Health, or the combo kit as a one-time purchase or a subscription. If you've been listening to this show for a while, then you know that I'm a podcaster and a realtor. And on some days, like today, I have to do both. I spent all day in a courthouse watching a trial that we're covering, and then I had to drive an hour and a half away to put a lockbox on a new listing. It was a long day, to say the least, and normally I would have been exhausted at about 3 when I still had several hours to go. But I've recently been adding everyday dose into my morning routine, specifically into my morning coffee. And let me tell you, I was driving home late tonight and I felt great. Everyday Dose is coffee plus benefits. They combine high-quality coffee with powerful ingredients like lion's mane and chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost focus, and give you clean, sustained energy all day long. It tastes just like coffee without the downside. No crash, no jitters, just clean, sustained energy. Right now for Black Friday, get 61% off your first Coffee Plus starter kit, a free A2 probiotic creamer, and over $100 in free gifts. Plus, enter for a chance to win $100 cash or get your entire order refunded. Visit everydaydose.com/ATTWG or use code ATTWG at checkout. In their Friday, January 29th edition, the News Tribune reported that during the initial search for Teekah, 2 search dogs independently led their handlers to a bushy area across the street from the bowling alley. However, from what it sounds like, nothing was found at the time. But during a search on Tuesday, so 3 days later, a rolled up ball of men's clothing was found in those same bushes.
So it wasn't found at the initial search?
Correct. The items recovered were a size large Boatworks brand navy blue men's wool coat. It was hip length with oblong wooden buttons and a green quilted lining. The initials either IS or JS were written on the tag. They also recovered a pair of off-white size 34-32 men's Lee Dungaree brand jeans, stained with either purple or blue ink, and a new-looking Columbia brand flannel shirt. The shirt was green and blue plaid over a white background with yellow highlights. It was cold and rainy on the day Teekah disappeared, and it continued to be so in the days following. And police told reporters that the clothing didn't have any mold or mildew and did not appear to have been outside for very long. They were confident that it was not there during the initial search.
So aside from just them being in that same area where the dogs searched, what makes them think that it's connected?
Well, I mean, it was almost in the exact same spot where the dogs searched.
Okay.
Like in the same bushes where the dogs alerted, I should say.
Yeah, it seems, well, I guess criminals go back to the area of offense
right
all the time. So it just seems strange to me that somebody would go back to the scene of where the event occurred just to dump their clothes if they didn't find the clothes before.
It is a little odd for sure, but
yeah, I'm not discounting it. It just seems odd that would happen, especially given that the police said that it didn't look like the clothes had been outside for a long time.
So after the clothing dried, it was combed for fibers, but the results have never been released publicly, so we don't know if anything of evidentiary value was found or not.
So I can see them keeping that a secret, especially given that there are initials, IS or JS.
Right.
Like, you don't want to tip your hand if you actually have evidence that whoever IS / and or JS, whatever, is the perpetrator of some nefarious act against Teekah. Like, I can see them keeping that information secret because that doesn't help in the search for her.
No, absolutely. And so we don't know if there was anything on the clothes or whatever. Now, I did read one article that said those initials are consistent with initials that a local thrift shop would put on their clothing, but it didn't make sense to me because I don't remember the shop's name off the top of my head, but it wasn't anything that was close to those initials. You know what I mean? So I don't know why they would randomly put those particular initials on items that they sold. So I don't know. I just read that in one source. Now, police, as we've been saying, did jump into action very quickly with regard to Teekah's disappearance. But when a missing child is not found, it's natural for the family to feel as though authorities aren't doing enough to find them, right? I mean, I can't imagine how powerless and helpless you must feel, and you're looking for somebody to blame. And so, like if she's not found, kids are found. They don't disappear, right? So you've got to think you're not doing something. There's something you're not doing. And that's how Theresa felt, obviously. So she and two of her brothers marched down to the Tacoma Police Department and demanded to speak with the chief. And like this was all caught by reporters. They simply felt like not enough was being done to find Teekah. But, as was explained to them when they went down there, the sad fact was that more resources were being devoted to this case than any other in the area in years. So Theresa left the police station feeling defeated and deflated because she really couldn't place the blame there.
For them to say, and for it to be true, that all of their resources are going towards that case, that's a lot. Tacoma is not a great area.
No.
It's right outside of Seattle, for those that don't know. It's where the airport is, SeaTac Airport. Mm-hmm. It's mostly a seaport. It's really crime-ridden.
Right, yeah.
It's not a great area. So, again, for Tacoma PD to say, and for it to be true, that they're devoting the majority of their resources to this case, that is saying a lot.
No, it really is. But
yeah, of
that
course,
also
doesn't give any comfort to the family, of course.
And it doesn't mean that the investigation was without flaws. So, we're here talking about this case over 2 decades later, so it shouldn't be a huge spoiler alert to say that it went cold. And as the years have gone on, information has come to light that I don't know if police properly followed up on at the time. In January of 2020, 21 years after Teekah's abduction, Fox 13 Seattle interviewed a man that they're calling John. John was 17 years old in January 1999, and he was at New Frontier Lanes bowling with his family on the night Teekah disappeared. He told reporters, quote, "I had to use the restroom, so I went towards where the restrooms were. This rude guy bumped into me with this little girl, and he was white. The little girl was mixed. I just thought it was a father rushing his daughter to the restroom," end quote. Now, this incident stuck out to John because the guy hit his shoulder really hard when he bumped into him and didn't say he was sorry. So he was just like, this guy's a dick, Now, he doesn't say what time he and his family left the bowling alley, but he did say that when they left, there were police officers in the parking lot. But the officers didn't tell them what was going on or that they were looking for a missing little girl. I mentioned the security guard making the announcement over the intercom, so I'm guessing that it wouldn't have been that John and his family would have left before that happened because that was before the police were called. And if the police were already there, so maybe they didn't hear it because there were like hundreds of people at this bowling alley.
It's league night, so that's certainly a possibility. But then if the police are already on scene and the off-duty PD security guard had quote unquote locked it down,
right,
and didn't let anybody leave, somebody should have been interviewing people as they were leaving.
Well, exactly. And that's what's so strange because it doesn't sound like they were interviewed at that time and they were just allowed to leave.
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't as locked down as it seems.
Exactly. So John and his family just went home. And it wasn't until he was watching the news a few days later that he made the connection and realized that Teekah was abducted from the bowling alley the same night he was there. And what's more, once he saw a picture of her, he realized that she was the little girl being rushed into the bathroom, and the rude man was not her father.
And this was back then.
Yeah.
This was not him recounting it 20 plus years later.
Yeah, no, this is him. He's talking to reporters for the first time 21 years later. But no, he realized days later, like Monday, Tuesday, what had happened. John called that 24-hour tip line to tell police what he saw, and they interviewed him. They took him seriously. They interviewed him, but he never heard from them after that. So, for the last 20 years, he had been wondering if what he had seen was important or had anything to do with anything.
And I'm assuming we don't know what level of interview. Was there a sketch artist brought in, anything like that?
No, we don't have the details of it, just that it was one interview.
It's a huge missed opportunity there.
According to this article that I was reading from 2020, it wasn't until a cold case detective, Detective Stephen Ropel, was looking through Teekah's case file 20 years later that he realized the potential significance of what John witnessed. John described the man that he saw as having a pockmarked face. Now, this rang a bell for Detective Ropel. He told Fox 13, quote, "About a week after Teekah's disappearance, they were filming a reenactment down at the bowling alley, and someone who was standing there watching noticed a person with a pockmarked face who was also watching the reenactment, and the witness who called in thought he was acting strangely," end quote.
Returning to the scene of the crime.
Exactly. Just getting right back to what you were saying before. The detective says that the man in question, as described by both witnesses, is white, 5 feet 11 inches tall with a husky build. He had shoulder-length, curly brown hair with a thick mustache and a heavily pockmarked face. He was also said to be wearing, and I don't know if this is at the bowling alley or at the reenactment, but he was said to be wearing a blue plaid shirt and faded jeans, which is similar to the clothing found near the scene, which was a green and blue plaid shirt and off-white jeans. And I think off-white jeans and very faded blue jeans could look similar in certain situations.
Clarifying the timeline. When was the reenactment versus when they found those clothes?
So they found the clothes on the Tuesday after her disappearance, so about 3 days later.
Okay.
The reenactment was about a week later, I believe.
So it was after
I believe
they found the clothes that
Yes.
they did the reenactment.
Although John wasn't re-interviewed back in 1999, the existence of this pockmarked man was reported on much earlier than when his article came out. An article marking the 1-year anniversary of the abduction has a rundown of the most important evidence that police had up to this point. So now we're talking about an article that was released January 23rd, 2000. In it, reporter Stacey Burns writes that the search for Teekah has come down to finding 2 men. Detective Larry Lindbergh, head of the Tacoma Police Department's Missing Persons Division, so he was the lead on this case, I don't know if when she disappeared, but at least 1 year later, who is different from the cold case detective. Lindbergh told Burns that a teenager who was at the bowling alley that night told investigators that he had seen 2 men hanging around the video games while Teekah was playing. He also said that they seemed to be following her as she walked near the front desk door area, but that he didn't see them do anything to the little girl. Now, this to me sounds like a different teenager than John.
Right, because John ran into pockmark-faced man going
near the
into the bathroom or near the bathrooms, right?
Yeah, near the bathroom. This teenager says it was 2 men near the video games. One of the men was believed to be in his 30s or 40s and about 5'11" and 200 pounds. He had brown hair, a thick mustache, a big nose, and a pockmarked face.
Fitting the description that John gave.
Exactly. The second man was also believed to be in his 30s or 40s, but was shorter, standing at around 5'9", but also weighing about 200 pounds. He had long black hair and wore dirty jeans and a gray jacket with a sports logo. Now, by this point, we're talking a year later, and the tip came in much earlier than this, but this is the first actual mention I could find of it in the media. A different witness had also come forward with a description of a car that she had seen speeding out of the New Frontier Lanes parking lot around the time of Teekah's disappearance. She didn't see who was in the car, so it's not known if it could have been one or both of these men, but she described the vehicle as a maroon 4-door 1980s or early 1990s Pontiac Grand Am with a spoiler on the back and tinted windows. Apparently, there were a lot of those in the area at the time. Police said that it was basically a dead end. It was a needle in a haystack, and they were never able to locate the car or its owner.
That is the most white trash fucking car ever. A Pontiac Grand Am.
Yeah.
Did it have T-tops? Like, that would make it even worse.
No, apparently not. Just a spoiler and tinted windows.
Okay.
It was at this point in my research that I noticed something interesting about this case that probably happens in a lot of these unsolved cases that span decades. With so many different people working on this, both on the investigation side and on the media side, information gets lost. So we've already kind of seen this with the man with the pockmarked face. Detective Ropel came across John's tip about bumping into him on the way to the bathroom and connected it to that tip from the news crew, both of which were given, within days of Teekah's disappearance. But that information doesn't appear to have been connected to what the former investigator on this case told reporters back in January 2000 about the other teenager who saw 2 men, including one with a pockmarked face, hanging out near the video games. Yes, this is 20 years apart, but I am, again, just a person with a newspapers.com subscription. I'm not anybody. That article from 2020 makes no mention of this other teenager, makes no mention of the second man, doesn't say hey, there are actually 2 different kids that night who saw a man with a pockmarked face and a big nose and a mustache. So like that's terrifying to me, the fact that there could potentially be a second suspect who has not been thought of in over 20 years. So in fact, that Box 13 article from 2020, where John was interviewed, has the headline, quote, Teekah Lewis, 21 years later, witness account could be key to solving case of missing girl, end quote.
Except that the police already knew about that.
Right. But then this cold case detective comes 20 years later. He's like, holy shit, there's a guy with pockmarks on his face. The article makes no mention of the pockmarked man already being a person of interest. Similarly, an article from January of this year, 2023, talks about the man's clothing, the blue flannel shirt and jeans, but also says, quote, detectives had not previously released information about the man's clothing, which they had. It was in that 2000 article. A few lines later, it talks about the Pontiac Grand Am that was seen and says, quote, in December, meaning December of 2019, Tacoma police revealed a description of a car seen leaving the bowling alley that night. A maroon or dark-colored Pontiac Grand Am, perhaps a late 1980s or early 1990s model, leaving the parking lot at a high rate of speed, end quote. That was not revealed in December of 2019. That was revealed at the latest January of 2000. In both the article from December that quote references and the ones written this past January of 2023, there is no mention of the second man seen with the pockmarked man. Now, what I can't determine, again, as just a random person with a newspapers.com account, is if this is because this second man was ruled out in some way and is no longer relevant to this case, or if this piece of information has gotten lost in the intervening years. And if the second is true, then what else has gotten lost?
I mean, there's no way that they could have ruled the person out. It's just a description of somebody. Like they can't rule that out.
Right.
So it does fall to the side of either information being lost or information being categorized as less important.
Right. But I mean, the pockmarked man, he's coming up even more. And so if somebody truly was with him that night, that is extremely important.
It is. I will say this, just in the defense of the detective on the case at the time.
Back in 1999.
Correct. Versus Detective Rappel, who's the cold case detective.
Yeah, in 2020.
The one benefit that a cold case detective has versus the detective on scene at the time is timing.
Mm-hmm.
The cold case detective has all the information gathered right in front of him. There's no rush.
Oh, for sure. And he already has the established timeline and the key players.
They'll go through all the evidence and rework everything, but there's no rush there.
No, of course.
Versus the detective on scene at the time. One of the things when, a new case like this is coming on, there's a flood of information coming. So it gets delegated to other officers to figure out what's important and what's not, to then bring it up to this lead detective. Probably not the best model.
But one person can't do it all.
No. But I feel as though in a missing persons case, there should probably be a little bit more oversight from a lead detective as far as what information gets passed on. Instead of, no offense against officers on the ground, uniform guys, they're interviewing people. They are the ones determining whether that information is good to go up or not.
And I think it's tough because they don't have all the context either.
Exactly.
Like usually it's just bodies. It's like, okay, you're on shift. Like you're going to handle this.
Yes.
You're going to be the guy right now who's listening to the tips on the tip line.
Right.
And then tomorrow it's a different guy.
Right. And you can brief them as much as you want, but
it's not the same people having the same firsthand information.
Right. which is where I think, and I know it's easy to say this. And
we are being such Monday morning quarterbacking dicks right now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what this podcast is, honestly.
Yeah. And what we have seen is, and we have brought this up many times, is there's no training on missing persons cases.
Yeah.
There's none. So every police department does it differently. The FBI does each case differently.
Of course. And at least the Tacoma Police Department has a missing persons division, which not everybody
huge.
Does.
Yeah.
So they're already like ahead of
also
a lot of
terrifying
other
that enough people go missing in Tacoma, Washington, that they actually have a division for it.
Well, it's a true crime trope. Like, don't ever go to Washington because so many people go missing there. And honestly, it is a port town, like you said. Like, there's a lot of trafficking. There are a lot of. It's
transient.
Yeah. Sorry, the Washington State Board of Tourism is not going to be sponsoring.
They're not going to endorse our show.
No. I apologize. I've never even been to Washington State. Ethan got married there one time, but
got to bring that up.
Regardless, I'm sorry, Washington. I'm sure there are parts that are lovely. That's where Twilight was, right? They have vampires too. Anyway, when I was researching this case, I was getting frustrated because I kept reading different write-ups that mentioned nearby incidents that were not only similar to this one, but could have been perpetrated by the same man. Now, what was frustrating, though, is that I read all of these sources, but I could never find the original source of this information. So, like, for instance, on one of her missing persons pages, there was information about these other incidents, but it doesn't say like where they got that information.
Oh.
So it was just very frustrating for me. But I think I was able to find somewhat of an answer. Now, it does sound as though the information about these 3 incidents that I'm going to talk about was called in during the initial investigation into Teekah's disappearance. So whether it came through the tip line or through, I think one of them came from employee interviews at the bowling alley. I think this was all known close to the beginning, but it wasn't in any of the news articles that were published at the beginning.
Okay.
Right? So I don't know what was or wasn't done with this information in 1999. The first actual mention of it I can find in the media was from a 2012 article about Teekah's case. At this time, Detective Lindsay Wade was in charge of the case. So now we're talking about like a whole third detective. Yeah. And she was another like cold case detective. Because again, we're talking 13 years later. So like all cold case detectives, she was going back through the over 700 tips that had been called in the previous, 13 years. And 3 in particular caught her eye. They were all incidents involving children getting approached and or assaulted by a stranger in and around New Frontier lanes.
In the bowling alley?
Yes. 2 of the incidents were in the bowling alley. 1 was nearby. And this part is tough to talk about. On November 29th, 1998, just under 2 months before Teekah's abduction, a 4-year-old boy and his father were at New Frontier Lanes. His father was in a bowling league, and while he bowled, the little boy went over to the arcade area.
Oh, Jesus.
Later, another patron found the boy lying down on the floor in a bathroom stall. He had been sexually assaulted. The suspect was said to have been a white man with brown curly hair and a beard. He was possibly wearing a baseball cap with the word Husky on it.
So not necessarily fitting the pock-marked face man.
Well, that man had brown curly hair and a mustache. This guy had a beard, so he may, if he was the pock-marked face man, you might not have been able to tell.
Right.
Unlike the night of Teekah's disappearance, the security guards, and it does sound like there were 2, on duty were not off-duty police officers. They were just guys who were hired to be security guards. So the father reported the assault to the guards and assumed that they would call the police, but they didn't.
Okay, so did the father end up calling the police?
Well, yeah. So the father found this out the next morning when he called the police to follow up. Because, I guess the police never came to talk to him or whatever. So he called them and they said, yeah, no, what are you talking about? So then he reported the crime himself. The security guards said, and I don't know when they said this or to whom, that they recognized the suspect as somebody who had been in the bowling alley before, but that they didn't know his name.
I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, no, I know. It's just going to get weirder. All right. So Detective Wade, who's looking at this thing, said this guy could have been a regular at the bowling alley. But I don't know what ever happened with this case to that, with that poor kid. Yeah, I don't know if the investigation into this assault of this small child went anywhere. But, this was an incident that happened at the bowling alley 2 months prior to Teekah's disappearance. And they tried to just sweep it under the rug.
My brain is going a million miles an hour. Why didn't the security guards report it? Why didn't the father call the police that night? That night,
Yeah.
when the police never showed up to interview anybody. If this person was recognized as a regular, why wasn't there follow-up on any of this?
Yeah, I have no idea, because it doesn't sound like the other security guards necessarily knew about this, like the ones who weren't working that night or the employees. Or it doesn't sound like anybody was like, oh, hey, we need to keep an eye out for this guy in case he comes back.
Right. Regular to what extent? Is he a league bowler? Does he show up
sporadically?
Yes,
yeah.
right. If he's a league bowler, that's somebody that you can just fucking show up on league day as a police officer and be like, hey, point this dude out to me. Now we're going to interview him.
Right. So this is 2 months prior. Now we're getting into a few weeks prior to Teekah's disappearance. Another family was bowling at New Frontier Lanes. This time, it was a 6-year-old boy who was playing in the arcade area while his family bowled. His mother was keeping an eye on him, and when she looked over, she saw a white man with brown hair kneeling down and talking to her son. He was even holding on to the boy's hand. When she and others rushed over to confront the man, she heard him tell someone who had gotten there first that he was the little boy's father.
Oh my God.
They got security and the man was escorted out.
What? Come on.
I know. Again, the mother assumed that security had called Tacoma police, but once again, they did not. And they just let this guy go.
What the? Oh my God. This is so frustrating.
Right. And it very well could have been the same man. I mean, yes, a white man with brown hair,
sure.
Not
even if it wasn't the same man, why would you just escort somebody off the property thinking oh, this fucking dude that's exhibiting predatory behaviors, just let him go.
Yeah, just 86 him.
Yeah, we don't need that on our property. Let him do that somewhere else.
Right.
No, you fucking call the police.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Absolutely wild. The third incident took place just hours before Teekah's abduction. A father and his 2 children were at a park less than a mile away from the bowling alley. While they were there, the father saw a white man with brown hair and a baseball cap by the bathrooms. He appeared to be motioning for his children to come inside the bathroom with him.
Jesus.
The father rushed over and chased the man off. According to the father, the man got into a blue 1995 Pontiac Grand Am and drove off.
So different color, but the incident with Teekah was at night. So the color could have been off because it was just dark.
Yeah, and in terms of the witness who saw the car at the bowling alley that night, most things that I've read say that they believed it was maroon, but I have read some reports saying it was maroon or purple. And if we're talking more purple and blue,
yeah, right,
that's especially when one is at night,
right?
Yeah. So the dad didn't call the police at the time. He was like, I chased this guy off. He left. But once news broke about Teekah's disappearance, he called it into the tip line. So the man or men involved in these 3 incidents remains unknown. So, we obviously can't say for sure whether they're related to Teekah's disappearance or if they're related to each other or any of it.
There's enough similarities, obviously this is hindsight, but there's enough similarities between all of them that like it's almost got to be the same guy.
Right. And, it has been said that witnesses told police that one or more of these men had a pockmarked face, but I was not able to find that in any of the original source material. So I think that might have been kind of added along the way. So I don't have any confirmation regarding that. But let's get back to the pockmarked man. This part I kind of don't understand. I think I figured it out, but so as I mentioned earlier, police put out a call back in 2020 for help identifying this man. In a report from local NBC affiliate King 5, Theresa says that a few months prior to this call for help, by the police, they showed her a picture of the man to see if she recognized him.
A picture?
Right. Picture, but not a photo. So that's what I was confused. I'm like, if they don't know who this guy is, like
how do they have a picture?
Right. I think that it was a picture, not a photo, and it was like a composite based on witness descriptions. That's what I have to guess. I didn't even bother to mention this because it should probably go without saying. The surveillance video at the bowling alley was not working the night of Teekah's disappearance because it never
Shocker.
is. So I don't think it was a video still or anything like that.
Right, but they did ask witnesses if anybody had taken any pictures. So maybe they do have a picture of a possible sighting of this guy.
Yeah, they could. I truly don't know. But whatever image she was shown, it was clear enough that she recognized him.
So we got him.
This is where it gets even weirder. So she didn't recognize him as like somebody she knew.
Yeah,
but she recognized him as somebody that she had seen at the bowling alley and was like, yeah, this guy looked like somebody I did not want my kids around.
Mm-hmm.
But what's stranger is in the article, she said that she believed she had also seen him on Facebook following a page she had set up about Teekah's disappearance and interacting on that page.
Mm.
Now, unfortunately, that page that she's talking about no longer exists. It's been replaced by a new one that I think was started in like late 2021. So I can't go and look back at anything that was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would assume that she would have told investigators, when they showed her the picture, like, holy shit, this looks like this guy who's been on our Facebook page. Did they not find him? Like, how, like,
Right.
What happened then?
Yeah.
What did the police do with that information? And she said, from what it sounds like, that this was before they put out that public call to help identify this man. And like the Facebook thing was not mentioned in that. So I don't understand what's going on here. So like they potentially had a picture and like, even if it was a composite.
Why not put that out to the
Yeah,
public?
why not put that out? This part is mind-boggling to me, especially because all of this was like 3 years ago and nothing new has happened. In late 2022, a new age-progressed image of Teekah was released. This one was created at the Forensic Anthropology and Computer Enhancement Services FACES laboratory at Louisiana State University. When Theresa saw it, she said that she cried because it was the first photo that she believed really looked like her baby. New Frontier Lanes, unsurprisingly, like after all of this came out, and again, like the other incidents there, I don't think necessarily came out in public at the time, but I don't think it's a coincidence that less than a year later, it was bulldozed.
Jesus.
Like somebody was like, all right, we're done with this. We're not having a bowling alley anymore. So there's like a Home Depot and I think a Jack in the Box there now. But, you know, while it was being demolished, investigators were there.
Yeah, in case anything was found.
Exactly. And the construction crews were all aware of like what had happened. So they were instructed to kind of keep an eye out of if they saw anything weird. So there was like another search performed at that time. But, you know, nothing was uncovered.
So the only question I have was about the clothing and Detective Ropel, the cold case detective that's on it now. Did he ever say anything publicly about the clothes?
Not that I've seen, no.
Because I know that there was, you had mentioned that at the time there was some sort of forensic.
Yeah, it was sent to the forensic lab and they combed it for fibers, apparently.
But they didn't release any of what was found.
No, and they still haven't.
The reason why I'm asking about this is I'm wondering the importance of the clothing, or if that was a red herring.
Right.
Not that the cold case detective not mentioning it means that it's a red herring.
Right. Do they still have those clothes?
Right.
It's been over 20 years. And do they have whatever fibers were combed off of it? Like,
or was there some sort of DNA present that maybe they could test now?
Yeah, so I don't know if anything has been re-examined. I don't know if anything still exists.
Right.
You know, I'm assuming that there weren't like blood stains on the clothing or anything like that. I feel like they would have, and like I said, did actually publish photos of the clothes in the newspaper, and you can't really see anything because it's a black and white, terrible newspaper photo. But, you know, again, I think if there were blood stains or anything like that on the clothing, anything obvious, the photographer probably would have mentioned that,
yeah,
you know?
Right.
But blood obviously isn't the only thing of forensic value that you could possibly pull off of clothes.
Right.
So yeah, I do not know where we stand with that evidence. Theresa has held out hope that Teekah is still alive out there. She believes that there's a possibility that Teekah doesn't know she was abducted because she was so young. And Theresa likes to hope that her daughter had a good life, that she played sports in high school and graduated and went off to college. In December 2022, she told CNN, quote, "If she's out there and she sees this, know you have 5 sisters that want to meet you. You have a mom and an enormous number of aunts and uncles that are just waiting for you to come home. We know it's been almost 24 years, and I'm sure you don't know this, but we want to know you. We want to bring you home because I've never given up on you. I will not stop looking for you until you're found." End quote. Teekah Lewis has been missing since January 23, 1999 from Tacoma, Washington. Teekah is a mixed-race female who is Native American, white, and black. She was approximately 3 feet tall and 35 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She has black hair with natural reddish highlights and brown eyes. She has a large birthmark on her left buttock and patches of light discoloration on her face and the left side of her buttocks as the result of eczema. Teekah has facial dimples and pierced ears. She was last seen wearing a green Tweety Bird sweatshirt, white sweatpants, and black and white Air Jordan sneakers. She also had a clear purse with a fish design containing Starburst candies and quarters. The Tacoma Police Department is asking anyone with information about Teekah Lewis's disappearance to contact Crime Stoppers of Tacoma, Pierce County at 1-800-222-TIPS. You can also call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. There's a $1,000 reward for information leading to arrest and charges in the case. You can see all the sources for this episode along with photos and videos at our website, andthentheyweregone.com.
And be sure to follow us on social, and Then They Were Gone Pod on Facebook and at ATTWG Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It will help new listeners find us. And the more people that listen, the more chances we have of bringing someone home.
And we'll see you here next week for a brand new episode.
See you next week.
And Then They Were Gone is hosted by Kona Gallagher and Ethan Flick. All research, writing, and editing is done by Kona Gallagher. Theme music is The Stork by Ketsa. Additional music is provided by Kai Engel. And Then They Were Gone is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!